Have you ever looked at a big social project, one with tons of funding and good intentions, and just wondered, why did it fail? Well, today we're diving into what is arguably the single most important factor, really understanding the complex human landscape behind any problem. It's about looking past the obvious to see who is truly involved.
Look, it's a tough pill to swallow, but simply wanting to do good, it's never enough to create real, lasting change. In fact, you know that old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Well, in this line of work, the road to failure is often paved with the very same thing. Great ideas that are completely disconnected from reality.
And that brings us to the big question, right? Why do so many of these projects, backed by passion and money, just fall flat? Or even worse, why do they sometimes cause unintended harm? The answer, as we're about to see, almost always comes down to who we listen to, and more importantly, who we ignore. You see, when you don't do a deep analysis of the people involved, projects just crash into walls of unseen resistance. You get these proposed solutions that make no sense on the ground, completely ignoring local realities. You can accidentally reinforce harmful power structures, and maybe the worst of all, you create dependency instead of real empowerment. This is precisely why getting this analysis right from the get-go isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely non-negotiable.
So how do we get it right? Well, we start by building a really clear framework. Let's break down the 3 key groups you have to understand before you do anything else: the community, the stakeholders, and the beneficiaries.
Okay, first up, you have the community. This is the broadest group, the people connected by place, by identity, or by some shared experience. And right here's where the most critical mindset shift has to happen. A community is not a problem to be fixed. It is the #1 source of knowledge, of resilience, and ultimately of the solution itself.
Next, we've got stakeholders. Now, these are the people or groups with a stake in the game. They're either affected by the problem, or, and this part is so important, they can actively influence the outcome, for better or for worse. We're talking about government officials, local business owners, maybe community leaders. They might not be getting direct help from you, but believe me, their support or their opposition can make or break your entire initiative.
And finally, we have the beneficiaries. These are the people who are going to benefit directly from whatever you're doing. But the wording here is so key. They are not passive recipients just waiting for a handout. In any ethical approach, they have to be treated as active partners, as co-designers of their own future. So how do these all fit together? This table is a perfect way to see it, using the case study we're about to jump into. You see, the community is the big picture, in this case, Afghan rural communities. The stakeholders are the influencers, people like NGOs, parents, and teachers. And the beneficiaries are the very specific group we're focused on, the girls who are being denied an education. All right, let's put this framework to the test. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're going to apply these concepts to a super high-stakes, real-world scenario, the fight for girls' education in Afghanistan.
Our case study here is inspired by the world that organizations like the Flying Wings Online School are navigating every single day, trying to provide these crucial educational lifelines. So this isn't just theory, this is about a complex and incredibly urgent reality. And the problem couldn't be more stark. Across Afghanistan, millions of girls who were once in school are now being barred from getting a secondary education. That's the challenge we're going to break down.
So, we're going to tackle this methodically with our 3-step analysis. We'll walk through it together. First, identifying the broader community, then mapping out all the different stakeholders, and finally, getting laser-focused on who the beneficiaries are.
Step 1, defining the community. In this case, it's pretty much all Afghan families, whether they're in rural villages or big cities, people who've been displaced, and the whole ecosystem of teachers and students. But the key thing to remember is that this is not a blank slate. This is a community with its own deep cultural norms, intense economic pressures, and very, very real security concerns.
Okay, step 2. Let's map the primary stakeholders. These are the people with the most direct power, the heavy hitters. You've got the immediate families, who are basically the gatekeepers. You have respected local elders, whose approval is vital. You have the teachers, who would actually deliver the education. And of course, you have the de facto authorities, who are setting the rules.
But that circle of influence is way wider. We also have to map the secondary stakeholders. These are groups like the NGOs and international donors who provide the resources, the tech platforms that make online learning possible, the internet companies whose service is essential, and even the influential Afghan diaspora networks connecting the community to the rest of the world.
And now, we get to what I think is the most fascinating part, the hidden stakeholders. These are the people whose influence isn't obvious at first glance, but it can be absolutely decisive. Think about a male sibling who controls the family's only smartphone, or a local religious leader whose opinion carries enormous weight. These are the people who are so often forgotten in the planning stages, yet they hold the power to quietly enable or completely block an entire solution.
And that brings us to step 3, getting crystal clear on our beneficiaries. The primary beneficiaries, of course, are the adolescent girls aged 12 to 18 who are directly shut out of school. But the benefits have this incredible ripple effect. So the secondary beneficiaries include their families, their entire communities, and honestly, generations to come.
So we've identified all the players on the field. But just having a list isn't enough, right? How do we turn this knowledge into ethical, effective action? Well, the next step is to map not just who they are, but what power they hold and what they're really interested in.
But before we even look at a tool for that, we have to stop. We have to pause and ask, what is, without a doubt, the single most important ethical question that has to guide every single decision from here on out? In all of this complexity, who is actually speaking for the girls?
And that one question immediately leads to a bunch of other critical ones. Are the girls themselves actually involved in making these decisions? Have we fully understood the security risks or the social stigma they might face? Does our solution protect them, or could it accidentally put them in more danger? You know, ignoring these questions isn't just bad strategy. It is an ethical failure, plain and simple.
This is how we can start to visualize that whole power landscape. A stakeholder matrix like this one forces us to be really honest about the situation. I mean, just look at it. Who has the lowest power on this chart? The girls themselves, the beneficiaries. Their interest is education, but their power is low. Now look at the top. The authorities have high power, but their interest is control. This map right here reveals the fundamental challenge, and it shows us exactly where we have to work to find some kind of alignment.
So, with all these frameworks and matrices and analyses, what's the one thing that holds it all together? What is the single most important action you can possibly take?
It all boils down to this one single powerful idea. The people you are trying to serve are the world's foremost experts on their own lives, on their own needs, and on their own dreams. Our job isn't to be the expert, it's to recognize, respect, and amplify their expertise.
Because in the end, everything we've talked about today comes down to this. Listening is not some passive, preliminary step you just check off a list. It is the active, ongoing foundation for any project that hopes to be not just effective, but truly, deeply ethical.
And so I want to leave you with this question to carry forward into whatever work you do. As you look at the challenges around you, always ask yourself, who holds power here that isn't immediately visible? Because finding that answer, well, that's the first step toward real understanding and toward real change.